Savage Truth presents live from the King's War Chariot, somewhere outside of time, from the dimension of the impossible being possible, the mysterious realm where dreams are formed and destinies are birthed, standing on the edge of eternity where truth and faith merge, calling out, wake up.
Seeking truth.
Seeking truth.
Dismantling lies.
Dismantling lies.
It's time.
Time to unpod. Language comes from the stars. There was an original master, creator, builder language that men used to speak early in ancient times before Babel. You could speak it right into the simulation and things would happen. Probably resembled an original form of Hebrew. Sacred syllables imbued with power into them. Some form of frequency sigil language that men could speak. And like I said, literally create and build into the sim. Create Babel-like tower technology. Super ancient advanced tech that we have no idea about and is starting to re-emerge today. Check out this pattern. At Babel, language was taken away with the wind for the purposes of them wanting to destroy God's kingdom. That was Nimrod's plan. At Pentecost, language was restored for trying to build God's kingdom, the gospel, with wind again, part of the pattern. Plus the wind is the spirit, ruach, breath. And Yeshua is the word that became flesh. Words, breath, language, all very interesting and spiritual in origin. It's kind of weird how we all make a pre-agreed upon noise and then other people's brains recognize this noise and it has meaning, just like arranged noises. You just make a certain shape with your mouth and then you resonate some sort of frequency and words come out. And then everybody else knows what you're talking about, as long as they have this ability also. But if you go somewhere else, you might be lost, pushed out by the language code, and you won't understand anything, and you'll be like a baby again. Weird. By the way, weird comes from the word word. Like when someone says someone's a weirdo, it actually means they have a power with words to be able to create with words, kind of like the ancient idea of a wizard. Anyway, in ancient times, an original language with these simulation codes taken away from mankind at Babel for having displayed a propensity for evil, a propensity to be easily deceived, and to not listen to the maker or to take his advice even. And most of what you see today is an example or an expression of the dark side basically just trying to work around God. Work around God stopping them from fully matrixing this place out. And that's what the occult and the elites is what it's all about. Circumventing God and the limits and boundaries he's put on things to stop them from turning this into a matrix, full-fledged. And to preserve the earth and the few pure in heart that will move on to the breakaway civilization with him. That manifests throughout the course of time here in this realm. All esotericism is basically just doing spiritually illegal things to put yourself in the place of God. And ever since Babel and the tower being destroyed, no one really has permission to use the holy language, the creator, master, builder language, except pieces of it, like I said, being given back at Pentecost to build the kingdom of God. Not selfishly build the beast kingdom, which is what they're trying to do. And you can see evidence of this with man's tech, that they just keep trying to build the tower. They keep trying to build the beast system and they won't stop with the Babel plan until it's fully realized with the literal Antichrist matrix, the beast system. Glossolalia, or speaking in tongues, is what it's called and ties into this. And people even trying to subconsciously recreate this original language, or the holy language, or the master builder language. Tongues of fire is a phenomena that you could see in the Bible and even in the book of Enoch, this phrase. And the tongues of fire was what happened at Pentecost. Also, it doesn't mean it's fake, by the way, in churches. I did a short, by the way, you can check out about this exact phenomenon. And if you hear this, it doesn't mean it's fake. It's kind of like I said, subconsciously recreating this. Babies learning syllables, trying to speak, something in their spirit trying to break out. Some people seem to get this baptism all at once, an ability to pray in the spirit, which again is speaking in tongues, which is a gift for foreigners to preach the gospel. Check the short on my page. But the Holy Spirit is renewing the mind, the divine mind renewing the human mind. All languages coming back to Babel and fragments remain. The elites are desperately trying to piece it all back together. So remember the wind and language pattern that you would see again at Pentecost. Wind and language change. More patterns. At Babel, you see language and the stars connection. Babel was literally a Stargate. That's what Babel means. So you see this pattern with language and the stars, and then Babel being a Stargate. Check out this video here about language coming from the stars.
The Latin alphabet we use comes from the Greek, which comes from the Phoenician, and if you wrap it around a circle, turn each letter 90 degrees, and combine them into two-letter pairs, you see that our alphabet comes from the stars. Note, however, that these three signs are reversed. These are individually mirrored. Cancer has a basket on its head, and Aquarius is missing. The letter reversals are due to the sun's analemma still present in the alphabet, and that's the figure 8 pattern that the sun draws on the sky each year, and the direction the sun is moving through each sign causes the letter reversals. Untie the alphabet on the 7th of 22 letters. The basket on Cancer's head marks the summer solstice. Aquarius is silent because the early peoples believed his waters to be the underlying fabric upon which all the other signs lived and moved and had their being. And we can answer more questions if we look into the pictographic meanings of each letter, or if we stack the alphabet on a 7-layer cake.
This from the star symbol language could be harmonized, and is basically the concept of a mandala. And again, having electric power and spiritual portals to the stars. The human body also being a portal. Think about birth and the whole concept of a life coming here from somewhere else, and then all of a sudden it's here. Kind of interesting. Also, the womb is actually called the matrix. That's literally what it's called. And your mouth, again, the concept of language and words, your mouth is a portal. Language spirits trying to possess human entities or disembodied spirits needing a human voice to do something in this realm. Portal for language. And again, Jesus being called the Word. And in the beginning, the Word was with God. Language from the stars and all constellations kind of look like sigils, or the electrical circuitry symbols. Hidden knowledge controlling the matrix. The as above, so below principle that they try to recreate with this ancient geomancy, all being reassembled and recreated. And again, encoded into the seemingly supposed to be innocent things like emojis, which are demon sigils. Special set of 72 that I've covered. And this entire tech grid, the ley L lines with the electrical symbols, some people think it's literally summoning demons, jinns, smokeless fire, electricity spirits, and other elementals to literally function as the power grid themselves, controlled by sigils into every home and every device, routed by the society controllers. It's a wild theory, but it might actually be onto something sneaky, born into a technology grid like we are, and it all just seems normal. What if it really is all a literal demon spirit matrix beyond the concepts I've covered? Just electricity, huh? Just normal. Now what if at some point the power grid all of a sudden acted completely different? There was a scene from the Transformers where all these appliances just suddenly became sentient and morphed into their Decepticon form and started to engage in attack form. Sounds wild, but maybe. Also, with towers and spires on the top of buildings, they're called spires. Spires being related to the word spirit. And again, sprites that I've covered, which is lightning. Lightning being sentient, and this same electrical power. It's all connected. Elemental spirits are real, ether is real, and the spirits can travel through all of this stuff, let alone outright inhabit it. More on the next episode about that. A lot of L words also hide this pattern in plain sight. But this cool tie-in about electricity, actually, if you look it up, I found out it comes from amber. If you remember Ezekiel's description of God with the cherubim, the amber bronze, with the fire reflecting off it in the crafts connection in the thrones, it's kind of interesting how that's the origin of electricity. And also amber with the whole Jurassic Park Nephilim reptilian recreation theme. The use of amber in Jurassic Park as well. And in Greek, electricity was a type of fire. And it was called electron in ancient Greece. Amber was called electron. So this whole thread with amber and electricity and how that relates to cherubim, and even with the Nephilim Jurassic Park thought. Electricity occurs when amber strikes wool, which is also a cool picture of God and his sheep, him being the good shepherd. God's Merkaba fuel source in the throne crafts, which again I mentioned before, specific coals. To me it seems like this is the literal prayers and the worship of the sheep/saints. The same pattern as the temple incense. Cherubim throwing the coals of the prayers into the crafts to make them go. There's even a verse about being in the presence of God and beings that hold the prayers of the saints. Seems like it all ties in because ancient legends of literal praise portals being created and God riding in on the praises of his saints. Atmospheres being created with lost Gregorian chants, lost tones and keys that create doors, portals, worship secrets that we don't really know anymore. Sound patterns, charged sound and frequencies, special again Gregorian type chants and worship. Also, before moving on, there was another cool tie-in with the cherubim. Speaking of throne and Merkabas and cherubim, which it keeps getting deeper, think about this right here with the cherubim and the caribou. You know, the kind that push Santa's sleigh. The Merkaba being a sleigh, both being thrones driven by either cherub or carib, cherubim or caribou. And the reindeer's names, some of them Donder and Blitzen, which means thunder and lightning. Again, lightning and electricity. And also Comet being one of the names. And tying into themes like the chariot in the sky with horses, like the kind that picked Elijah up. All kind of tying in the same thought and origins of different things in our culture. Speaking of Elijah, I've shown you these different L words before. And this whole demon L, technology, smartphone, matrix in general, turning us all into low energy, highly suggestible, easily controllable, numb grid automatons. And I'm sure they're harvesting off of us in several ways also. There is a real and measurable effect of these radioactive demon tech frequency weapons on our bodies all the time, and have a measurable effect on the body and the mind more and more as long as the exposure keeps increasing as well. The effects increase. Smartphone, again that word smart being linked to the word demon. There's this ancient thread about demons being associated with knowledge. So the smartphone, basically, call it a demon phone. What does that mean about smart cities? Yikes. Also, there is the demon and the computer daemon. It's the same concept. Check out this definition. It's basically a program that runs in the background, just like a demon, and it performs tasks without the user even being aware, like background modes, suggestible thoughts, slight alterations to personality and urges. It also says the daemon, just like the demon, is activated by certain events or sequences, and then it operates silently or sneakily, again, beyond the user's awareness. This terminology, word magic here, and it's not a coincidence. So portals also, aside from praise portals that I mentioned earlier, the technology, the demon smartphone, screens in general, Wi-Fi portals, spirits seem to be able to travel through all of these things. And I remember a couple years back reading how churches were being paid to put in Wi-Fi. I wonder if that's why. Also, I started seeing it started to become illegal to block Wi-Fi. I wonder if that's also related. Even also some mirror portals, like regular, perhaps mirrors, and obviously the black mirrors, magic mirrors, plug on my page. Also, there's literally like a camera and a microphone, obviously in your phone, but in most screens, which are literally monitoring spirits. Also, with quantum entanglement, brain technology the public is completely unaware of. Again, I will cover A lot of this on my next episode. Some really cool threads. So how does all this work? Sigils are an expression of geometry, sound, electricity, and authority. Faux spirituality make up their own sigils, but it's not really the same. The idea of encoded shapes that influence the flow of electricity, and often have interactions not understood by the encoders, especially in computer engineering and computer language, especially in the early, old, original internet. Side rabbit hole one day on that. Especially the deeper the AI rabbit hole gets. But shapes, math, sound, all the same, encoded in different forms, all related to another mystery, again, that nobody really knows what it is. Language. Words. This realm was created by sound. God spoke it into existence. The origin of everything of humanity, if you look it up, the very first thing that you find out is it has to do with sound. The very first moment is God speaking and then angels singing. It all has to do with sound. And when God speaks, things happen. Insta-auto update with word keys. The idea of mandalas and frequency expressions also tie into this, and so-called sacred syllables like Om, which would be a visual representation of a sound or syllable or frequency. And it's usually connected to deities, just like all ancient cultures. We'll do a quick rabbit hole on Om, saying it basically an audio sigil, a sigil in sound form through frequency. And also this ties into the tetragrammaton, the real name of God. Supposedly it has to be sung in tones. So also the Om symbol has to do with any kind of frequency or resonation. It has to do with the shape of your mouth, really. Again, when you're saying the O, your mouth is actually forming the O shape. So if you could see energy, you would be seeing that coming into the Torah-Field. But these ancient root core syllables are tied into this. Also, this Om kind of looks like 30, which is interesting with the 30 Buddhas, again with the deities, and the O being the mouth shape, and also the M on the other side of the Om would sort of be like a closed mouth with vibration. Kind of just happens to be that way. This ties into a thought that spelling might not matter, but pronunciation does when you're talking about things like this. Actual pronunciation with these ancient syllables would matter to create into the sim. But not spelling, which is ironically how the meaningless grimoire spells, kind of hides a lot of this stuff. So we're going to move on from Om, but it's said to be the Metatron's cube of sound, basically. All sounds are supposed to be connected to this one sound. But again, on the thought of it being connected to a particular deity, you'll find that Om is connected to the god Shiva. Shiva being connected to the Orion constellation, connected to Nimrod, and Shiva connected to CERN. The Shiva statue at CERN, and the CERN connection with Apollo, again, full circle, on the temple to Apollyon, Revelation 9, bottomless pit. And also the Om frequency is connected with this, again with Shiva, who does the dance of destruction, and Apollo is the god of destruction. It's all this same destructive deity. It has to do with creating and destroying. Connected to all these things looking the same again, even the cathedrals and this circuitry here that you see, and mass hemisync frequency warfare that I'll cover in a future plug. So all this stuff being used as gatekeeping, just like the sacred geometry trap. Visualizing shapes in your mind leading to sigils and invocation of spirits. It's basically forming mind sigils to end up literally connected with other beings, or even some disguised as your higher self. Decoding the matrix here, unpodding from the matrix pods, dismantling the lies. Sacred geometry and mandalas, body mandalas, which is your body doing a body sigil, just like yoga, which is exactly what that is, a body sigil, a specific alignment of energy in your body to a link with certain beings. tying into the same yoking concept. You're yoking with something, the same as the astrology thread I covered on my last UNPOD. Also, we're going to dive into a fascinating rabbit hole now for a minute related to the importance of shape and nuclear origins. The interior of the first nuclear weapon had to be a very specific shape. It had to be the dodecahedron. Hidden sacred geometry and sigils built right into this that it had to be this exact shape in order for the critical mass to engage with the 12 gates and mirrors. It had to resemble an esoteric earth. This hidden sacred geometry mystery, and again, mystery school, fallen angel secrets, all built into this esoteric nuclear origin, which also has fascinating origin I'll cover one day, but about becoming again the destroyer of worlds in ancient Sanskrit and other rituals, and where this stuff really comes from. So shape mattering, the dodecahedron having to be built in for critical mass to be achieved, copying these heavenly patterns. Also, I went more to the dodecahedron in the symbol of the Elohim video that you can find on my page. Totally different set, but related set of info. All this hidden knowledge, it also has to do with spiral versions of the periodic table, Anunnaki, genetic alchemy knowledge about how to transmute one thing into another thing at an elemental level via methods. Mystery schools always tote this never-ending carrot stick demon knowledge tree chasing, which is the opposite of the kingdom of heaven, which says that the mysteries have been given to you freely. And salvation is also a free gift. People are always selling something or have cult-like string-alongs, it seems like. All this gatekeeping and spiritual handlers, basically. But the gift of the gospel, the true real ones, and the true Messiah, it's free. So nuclear weapons needing this shape. Also, there's a theory that nuclear weapons are not actually for weapons to destroy, but again tying into the alchemy thought that they're to feed something high up in the heavens. These second heaven rituals with these large nuclear alchemical birth-like blasts with a very specific mixture of formulas and sigils are meant to feed something or release something, possibly certain times, maybe when these gates are open in these portals. Interesting thoughts. Also, if you have a microwave, if you look at it, it will have the same radioactive sigil built in. It's the shape that the plate sits on and makes it turn, which could be built in any shape, but they happen to build this exact radioactive sigil in it. Probably for a reason. Also, supposedly, there's suppressed info. If you try to look up, is the microwave good or bad for you? Supposedly, it's not till page 100 on Google that it tells you that it's maybe not the best for you. Other weird household items you may find sigils on. You may find the sigil of Lucifer on your towel, which I have more than once. This sigil of Lucifer is also on many things. I've covered this before. But it's the same thing as the Kabbalah Tree of Life and the Caduceus. They're all the same pattern, and it is, again, the smart demon phone. It's the same exact thing. Also, originally probably connecting to the Sumerian, Egyptian, and Indian Tree of Life depictions, all having to do with the inner workings of man, genetics, and the like. Check out how all these things look the same. Language coming from the stars. These symbols of constellations from the Mazzaroth or zodiac turn into letters. The Phoenician altered into Paleo-Hebrew or runes, and then translated again into what we know now as English, but it's all connected. Star markings, angel sigils, even these 2K pics kind of all look the same, but everything converted into circuitry to make it work. A spiritual language, speaking into the living computer simulation, Torah-Field. I'll do a deeper future dive on the Torah-Field. Also, language comes in the shapes of letters. Certain original ones, like Hebrew and some Sanskrit, also were able to produce this. When you speak into the living computer simulation Torah-Field, the shapes of letters emerge. It has to do with the resonation and the shape of your mouth, and what comes out of your mouth. It actually forms the shapes of Hebrew letters into the Torah-Field. And again, certain Sanskrit was able to reproduce this. I showed you how all of this is encoded into the Star of David. the constellations as well as the Hebrew alphabet in this symbol. Fascinating concept, the Torah in the sky. That there is an actual language up there. That the stars form in constellations, an actual language. Sort of a rune-like ancient original Hebrew, the Torah in the sky. And that's why it says creation preaches the gospel. It's literally a cosmic arrangement. That's a message, a real language, possibly even a map home. And obviously the Matrix tries to hide it and redefine it. And some angels deviated from this original divine placement and messed up the message and the order, and they were punished for it by, this is also what it means when it says they left their first habitation, or the Greek word oikaterion, their first place, their habitation. Fascinating concept of the Torah in the sky. If you could read it fluently, I wonder what beautiful message it would contain. We only have glimpses of it, probably. Stars and time, the connection of what we have above is related to time, and also interesting how old clocks look like seals. These same sigils and seals and these old clocks all kind of look the same. Circles around them, some sort of numbers are writing on the outside, things in the middle. It's not like a clock Maseroth wheel, but also a lot of the clocks are on 10-4 esoterically. I think even on your phone, all the emojis for clocks probably say 10-4, just like the Back to the Future movie, how they were all stuck on 10-4. All tying into 10 code and the ancient seal of Solomon, the Grimoire version. Things I've covered before. Seals looking like sigils and clocks, fallen energy or fallen angel energy alignment, all connected to these 72 sigils encoded in emojis, now being the #1 worldwide language. Also coins and again original seals also sort of resembling some of this same kind of pattern, which will one day go to the mark of the beast. Images, the mark of the beast, a living icon, probably related to AI. Also, Enochian language symbols and angel sigils, which I probably would stay away from, and alchemy symbols, planetary astrology, zodiac symbols, again with the constellations, even questioning symbols like the table of elements and math symbols. Symbols being their own fascinating language of their own, kind of all seeming related to this thread of constellations, electric circuitry, demon sigils, and some form of this original language of power. And even music notes, and music symbols, especially because of the importance of sound creation, which I mentioned earlier, and even people's speech patterns. If you notice, when everyone talks, everyone sort of sings a song with their speech patterns. Music notes, charts, codes, and theories. This is the ultimate top-level science above everything. Again, sound having the ability to create. And it's a combo of all these other science, math, language, and everything. The last thing people remember or hear, it seems like, even people with Alzheimer's, they remember music still, and hearing is the last thing to go. It's also interesting how you can't turn off hearing the way you can turn off some of your other senses, like maybe closing your eyes. People in a coma can still hear again right before they pass away. All related to sound power. Especially when it's praise. Original praise, again, having some sort of portal power. What I mentioned earlier about the Gregorian chants and keys. Interesting how it's called that, and even the keys of Solomon. And this search for the ancient secret sounds to try to reproduce some of this stuff. At the highest level of secret elite black operations, things are trying to recreate or find. You can't even understand what music actually is until you can understand certain things and how it's its own weird language, and how at the very top of the dark arts, it is the #1 thing that controls the Matrix and is the forbidden topic. It also connects to the stars, 88 constellations, 4 divisions of the sky, 22 Hebrew letters, or just check this succinct vid that this guy made.
This music conspiracy almost got me banned off TikTok. There's 88 constellations in the celestial sphere, and there's 88 keys on a grand piano. Then there's a repeating pattern of 12 keys within an octave called the chromatic scale. Just like there's 12 constellations along the ecliptic called the zodiac signs. So we can put 12 points on our chromatic key ring. And since there's 12 tones on the color wheel, now we can see our major keys in color. Because when light passes through a medium, it creates 7 distinct wavelengths, which corresponds to the 7 scale degrees in a major scale. And those 7 scale degrees are the reason we have 7 diatonic modes. And of course, there's 7 days per week, named after the 7 celestial bodies that we can see from Earth with the naked eye. Then there's 3 notes within a triad with 4 types of triad, just like there's 3 months within the 4 seasons. And there's 3 trimesters before the baby gets here. Just like it's 3 mother letters, 7 double letters, and 12 simple letters. 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, right? 22 times 4 is 88. Music is magic.
That's only scratching the surface. I'm going to do a future dive on frequency manipulation and how that's used to completely pimp out the matrix. Now, music and frequency being as powerful as like wizardry, witchcraft tech, and how all these symbols connect, all these different things I've shown you, and how they all connect to emojis and some weird emoji uses. But first, check out some of these emoji pics. By the way, in the Muslim religion, they call this shirk magic. Throw a few of these here on the screen with different faces, and people have actually matched some of these up with some of these demon sigil seals, even ones like the octopus or the ghost. Skull and bones, other face emojis. Some of these are clear that they have them matched up the right way. Even the dragon here, you see, these are probably matched up right. And even once again, beyond the 72, that they have encoded some of these other sigils. Also, as the dark side of emojis, aside from being used as sigil spells, which people being placing emojis in certain codes, you might see 3 exact emojis or 3 random emojis or bots or witches popping up to do this, putting sigil spells through emojis on various people's videos. And it doesn't mean if you always see 2 or 3 emojis, that's what people are doing. There's a lot of people that just do it. But there's also an intentional usage, and that's what I'm talking about. And also, these emojis as a dark web black market code. There's this whole other dark side of it. Aside from that, Unicode, which decided to put these sigils in, if you didn't know, they're made up from some of the top umbrella companies in the Matrix, like Facebook, Google, which has all the Lucifer sigils, 666s, pentagrams, and all that other kind of stuff. But Facebook, Google, Apple, and the governments, all in Unicode. Behind the scenes, summoning wars for technology. More stuff I'll cover about that. Top companies battling each other, unbinding forces that have been bound forever, unleashing these forces on the world, all to gain an advantage. Plus there's AI bot codes that they use emojis for, try to recognize each other, and then even go off into their own language from there. Talked about the daemon background hidden programming, some of this stuff being hidden in words. With Babel, I've shown you this before, how the emoji has the smoke coming out of the nose and also the plane with the chemtrail coming out. Also Babel, being the prince of the power of the air, also being known as Belial and the fresh prince of Bel Air. Besides Bel's air, again the power of the prince of the air. Maybe. Also power of the air like towers and radio waves and the second heaven technologies. Interesting how these star symbols and language empower what we know as technology. Check out this pattern: Babel, language, tower, and then 72 nations. And then Mystery Babylon, emoji language, spread through a tower, a group of 72 demon seal emojis. Probably the same deities. It's probably why the pattern matches up, and probably why the world is changing so fast. That pattern is an intentional recreation of something, working its way cyclically back to Babel, Mystery Babylon through time. Pyramid, which obviously, people have known for a long time it was technology, but now everybody knows, and hieroglyphics. Tower, modern day towers, technology, and emojis. Again, Emojis being hieroglyph, basically, number one, world language, and how Babel's tower was literally a Stargate. Tesla tower tech also being related to this ancient Stargates, and Musk, who has the Tesla tower tech, rumored to open up portals when he was younger, portals being a Stargate. Tesla also, aside from having the tower tech, having the strong second heaven star presence, stars again, with his SpaceX and his rockets. These patterns connecting again. Ironically, he is also the one pushing the Neuralink, which is the closest thing probably that we know right now of to the mark of the beast. And he's got AI popping off. Who is this guy anyway? There's wild tower technologies in the number 72, connected to the spirits, the ruling nations, over the nations, principalities, their umbrella companies, the kingdoms of this world. It's the matrix hierarchy. It's all connected. But we are dismantling it all here on UNPOD. One of the main ways that these rulers try to rule over us is through technological manipulation. We're almost out. We're going to have one or two more thoughts. This episode is going to spin off in a few ways from here. Way off in the future, we're going to have some more language secrets. I'm going to be breaking down some secrets hidden right in the words in plain sight. And the next episode will be the mind-blowing tech exploration and the reveal. This heavenly Solomon tech at use in secret ways with this quantum brain soul siphoning technology. And also at some point in time, like I said, I'll further dive into the frequency manipulation of the matrix and invisible energy, going a lot deeper, which is completely fascinating. One final thought till next time. Take the patterns I've shown you today and understand how a tree is a tower. If you think about a tree, how it has roots that go down into the earth, and a tower having roots that go into the sky, into the stars. And also this avatar concept of the tree being linked to some sort of computer, Akashic record, knowledge system. The cosmic tree tower to the universe and stars, the tree of knowledge. The dark side and esotericism, they have to promise two things: unlimited knowledge and immortality. It's the faux fallen angel promise. It's the workaround of God, but it's a maze. And this is what's happening now. You can see this on your smart demon phone with the Apple Bite. This tree of knowledge reference on this scrying Akashic record device connected to towers, the Sky Tree, Stargates for knowledge and for demon connection. It is literally the tree of knowledge. Again, being exactly based off the Kabbalah design for the tree of life. And came from this ancient fallen angel ritual in caves with Steve Jobs in the story I've covered before. It's part of a realization of a grand work and where it's all going. The full-fledged matrix. Are these 5 or 6G towers quantum? Quantum AI tower grid of invisible matrix energy that fallen angels interface through and spirits can travel through or outright inhabit. AI, artificial intelligence, or angel intelligence. They are the ones that came down and taught this originally, and the world had to be reset multiple times, and all cultures mention it. Angelic beings coming down with knowledge and technology that teach stuff. Nothing new under the sun, and I've come to realize that ancient AI most likely definitely existed. Another fascinating thread, but descriptions about living automatons or different descriptions of AI or sentient robotic-like beings in recorded history. Possibly even some of the occult gods, again like Osiris, and them having to put him back together to reanimate him. Also not really much of a difference at that level between AI and the concept of a god, excluding the actual Most High God. The all-seeing eye, the eye of providence, the up-top view. Looking down, what is all of this? Humanity, one giant microorganism. What are we all doing? From the top down, cities looking exactly like motherboards and all the other threads and pattern I've covered. What are we all doing or part of on a mass species oneness scale. Towers and trees. Ironic how towers help people that are separated by distance keep in touch. At Babel, we were all spread out and lost touch because of the tower. Mankind lost more than just language or the ability to communicate with each other. We lost unity as one race. At Babel, people were changed and spread out, and the concept of different nations began. Races likely beginning here, and at the event known as Pentecost. Beyond the restoration of language, there's also a divine restoration of the one single race in unity through a tree. The tree being the cross. The cross is a tree. Trees and towers. You see how God's plan was always for Jews and Gentiles, adopted as one cosmic family. And in Revelation, you see at the very end a multitude of every tribe and tongue and nation. I hope to see you at the gathering. And remember, the Torah in the sky. If you rise above the matrix to where it all began, the stars, and even above, and read the message of that Torah in the sky with your new eyes, you'll clearly see it says, I love you.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Agents of the Matrix only exist to make me like them. I won't be like them. I won't be like them. No. Faith is what you make it. Only exists to be more like him.